Songi, you have less time to say what you have to say.
Yes, there was an issue from the Netherlands about citizens' engagement. I think we do have the governance framework on how we should involve communities, civil society, private sector, and government working together. But I think we have not implemented them, and we keep waiting. And I think it's important, as it was put by Minister Van Hagen, about how we need to contextualize, how we need to understand the local context. What do we need in the local context? That's very important. We have the frameworks, we have the conventions. It's a matter of putting them into practice and monitoring on how they work for each context.
Thank you very much. In fact, sorry, I would like to go back to Monsieur Jarreau, because we want to hear what the ministers are going to take home as the message. That could be done in one line. Do something, folks. Okay, please.
Thank you. I would like, my final word will be to elaborate a little bit on what my neighbor said, Jack said. We have a unique year this year, where the pieces of the jigsaw are on the table, and we have to put them together, these pieces of the jigsaw. It will not happen again, this opportunity where all the pieces come together. But back to this book, Collapse of Civilization. In the past, all the collapses happened and people didn't know that the action they were taking would lead to the collapse. Now we have no excuse. We know. And therefore we have a huge responsibility in front of future generation. And that's true for not only governments, but it's true for everyone making decision. We shall not be able to say we didn't know. So let's I stop there.
Thank you very much. We now have our two ministers. I think we'll end again with our keynote speaker, which says, please.
What I will say to my president is that he's not alone. The fact that we've made it a constitutional right, the world has come to realize that it is a global responsibility. And therefore, we have to carry on persuading our brothers and sisters in Africa and be part of the world in making sure that we have this SDG adopted. That would be it.
Thank you very much. Minister?
Well, thank you. First, I wanted to answer one of the questions about the youth and the citizens before I conclude with what I'm going to tell my president. I'm very practical. So what did I do for the Netherlands? I said, well, giving them education on the importance of water, nobody's going to really come to action. And Mr. Jarreau said, well, the youngsters are also very much interested in the worldwide problems. But I think it's even better to tell them about their own local problems. So we made an app for the telephone. You need new social media, where everybody can see exactly on the postal code zone where they live, what the problem will be if there's a flooding, where they can go to evacuate, what kind of stuff they have to have in their homes, and why is that needed? Because the Dutch always think, well, we do so much on prevention, we don't have to worry. But nature is strong, and if something goes wrong, 9 million people are at risk of drowning. I can only evacuate 15% of the 100% living in this area. So, and this is what started to open up their eyes. Although we do much about prevention, although this is a very important subject for us, still nature is stronger. And if something goes wrong, it happens to me. In my street, in my house, you can see exactly how high the water will be in your house. So making it very practical, what's my problem, what's in it for me, what can I do, is the essential. Now for the head of state, I'm going to, I don't have to convince our president, but what I'm going to say is, if you are not going to fight for water as a SDG, as a sole SDG, then we have to fight against water for a lot of centuries more.
Thank you very much. I'm wedded to my watch. We've got 15 minutes, and then the system will basically kick us out of here. So, Mr. Shloshinaji, Special Envoy of the President of Hungary, I would very much like to give you half your time to report.
All right. Well, Johnny has assigned me the impossible task to summarize the outcome of such a rich debate, which we are all very thankful, because lots of good things came out. Perhaps I try to just summarize the consensus points. First, we need one self-standing dedicated water supply, water and sanitation SDG. I think, I'm sure that implicitly you saw that when you talk about water, sanitation is a part of it, but I think we have to emphasize that. So we need one self-standing, dedicated SDG on water and sanitation, not as simply a cross-cutting. Several people are saying that if it is cross-cutting, that it's everywhere, and if it is everywhere, it is nowhere. So there is a danger that some politicians may still play that game. We still have, of course, an unfinished business with respect to the water, sanitation and hygiene issue. So WASH needs to continue. But as it looks now, the water SDG goes far beyond and includes issues such as, for instance, the climate change issue, adaptation to climate variability, and also transboundary issues. I think the message which we all need to send very powerfully to the heads of states and the other politicians is that, look, climate change is all about water. 90% of climate change is manifested through, with, and by water. So change the debate on adaptation strategy through appropriate water management. And of course, the future will not be the same as the past. And age-old concepts upon which our structures are based, for instance, 100-year flood, are changing. The 100-year flood, according to the cynics, is occurring every 10th year, if you are lucky. Indicators. This was a very important issue that came up. One of the lessons we learned in the MDG exercise is that the two water indicators were very weak. And they were not well defined. They were fuzzy. For instance, what does it mean, improve sanitation? And this is subject to interpretation. But they were very, very crude indicators. So we of course we need to have robust indicators, but they have to be well defined. That's what statistics is all about, and we have to get those statisticians involved to create a people-centered set of criteria. Data. If you don't measure it, you can't manage it. That's a very simple truth. Whether it's just to detect climate change or measure the frequency of hydrological extremes, or to look at how a treatment plant is working. But that's not enough, because if you don't have the means of management, then you can't manage it. And that yields the issue of infrastructure development, which, as several speakers indicated, is not a political priority. Take, for instance, Africa. Africa's infrastructure, which was mentioned, is far from being developed as it ought to be. Just single out one item, hydropower. Africa's hydropower capacities are only built up to 6%. Africa has huge hydropower potentials that need to be used. Many speakers indicated that water governance is water crisis is about the crisis of governance. There are two questions here which need to be very clearly understood. Governance is about what are the right things to do. Management is how to do things right. And these are not the same questions. So people who are saying that integrated water resources management is a panacea and has everything as a subset of it is basically wrong, because it's governance which is the big issue, including transparency, corruption, and the other issues which were mentioned. Water security, as speakers mentioned strongly, is all about governance, and the means to that, capacity development, education, science and technology, which is incredible how it evolved over the past 30 years. I'm a scientist by my training, and my fellow scientists call me often a traitor when I'm saying them. The job is done by 90%. We have the means, through remote sensing, through microbiology, absolutely fantastic progress. How to implement now is the question, such as technology transfer. Netherlands is spearheading an effort in that by hosting the UNESCO IHA Institute for Water Education to build capacities for the benefit of the developing countries in a very effective fashion. Indeed, the challenge challenge we have is how to build resilient communities in this. Economic arguments, come on. If you look at sub-Saharan Africa, 90% of the diseases are caused by water, or rather the lack of water. Half of the patients in hospitals in sub-Saharan Africa are there because of water. What else are other economic instruments you need? Perhaps to mention that $1 investment into that sector brings you $4 benefit. So this is not about a risk, it's about an opportunity for the business community as well. Transboundary issues is a big deal. 40% of humanity lives in transboundary areas. Yet, I was co-chairing the ministerial process and the whole political process, yet there is no solution. Some countries are still blocking development in there. So there we need credible political leadership. Corruption, ladies and gentlemen, is a two-sided thing. It's not the bad guy who receives the money. The bad guy is who offers the money. So this is a moral issue on both sides. However, there is good news. The good news is that yesterday afternoon, ministers have adopted the ministerial statement, including a set of recommendations to the ministers coming out from the Good Young Book. Let me just read, and this is my last thing, a recommendation from there that says, I quote, "It is important to reinforce the ongoing process to create an intergovernmental panel under the United Nations on water-related matters in accordance with the recommendations of the Budapest Water Summit and the Lima Ministerial Declaration on Climate Change, Education and Awareness Raising regarding the need of a robust intergovernmental institutional mechanisms to establish an innovative platform which pursues to bringing together the science and the policies in recognition of the importance of this vital resource." So that mechanism is put in place properly, could be really the watchdog that helps us to look at how the implementation is happening. Thank you so much.
May I please reintroduce Mr. Pio Venupst, Assistant Director General of the Swiss Development Corporation, for some closing remarks.
Thank you, John. Dignity, abuse, integrity, hatred, joy, resilience. Every single word counts. And even more when it's linked to values. Tick, tack, black, white, yin, yang, fear, trust, protect, share, consumption, production, red lines, sharing benefits, divide, unite. Two opposite words can trigger or holistic approaches that unite, or can block us forever. This is one of the biggest lessons I learned when I had the privilege several times to facilitate in the UN New York. We were talking about exactly New York, how we can bring reality into our negotiations. And I facilitated a lot of resolution, and some of the nastiest one that usually were even security that is accompany the facilitator because you don't know whether he's going to end up. And what my big take out of this kind of work, a part of burning out, but this is my personal sometimes problem, but it's that each time we managed to bring evidence and credibility to the process, we had better results in the resolution. And this is the work that we've been doing collectively in the last 1.5 years when working, trying to get up an SDG goal on water. I don't know if you realize that, but collectively, we've been working for more than 1 year, getting all the evidence we can to convince first ourselves, but also to convince others that this is what we need and this is the way we need to go. Now, I like to think that one of the byproduct of this process is already came out in this World Water Forum. I remember, I'm not necessarily an expert, a sectoral expert, but I used to work a lot, both in private sector and in the field, and in policy, in diplomacy, and in teaching. But I like to think, and when I came here, they say, don't mention transboundary, this word, because this is something that apparently just one second ago we could not say. Now, I just tried to count how many in the ministerial meeting declaration, how many people mentioned transboundary water management or transboundary something. I would say more than half of them. So I don't know whether this will escape again at the end. That will magically escape when it changes the lead from sectoral ministries to heads of state from here to New York. But if I would have an indicator that would say we were successful in getting right the goal, this is the word I would put in, just as an indicator, nothing else. I spoke about evidence, and I really do mean it, because there are a lot of reasons why we need to talk about evidence. I was speaking about credibility. And there it goes with the discussion about both means of implementation and the measuring of the thing. The measuring is pretty straightforward. What is not measured is not done, and what is not measured is not going to be financed. This is something that I basically got from this discussion. About the means of implementation is trickier. Because there, and this is where I ask the question whether, okay, are we sure that we know everything about our policy coherences? Because there is where the trust issue comes. Now, but there is one message that they took from the ministers is that when we talk about means of implementation, we are talking about equal footing partnerships. This is key. It's not question south-north. It's question about equal footing partnership. What does it mean this concretely? Again, it has to do with evidence and sharing. This is the point, sharing, protect or sharing. Are we sharing our knowledge? And are we going to share it in a way that we can adapt it to the condition? And this is the key for the future. This is the reason why we need multi-stakeholder partnerships. Because this is when we need to take academia, research, private sector, and everybody on board. Because everybody has part of the knowledge that needs to complete the puzzle. The institutional framework, even there, because we as Swiss, we followed a lot in the past. I don't know if some of you know about the New Yorking issue, but we follow about the system-wide coherence processes. So there was for the United Nations, well, a lot of big work, 3 years, 4 years on, to say, okay, system-wide coherence discussion led to the creation of UN Women, which is a body that has basically all the responsibility we are talking here. It's not just a coordinating body. Now, when we are discussing about a future body, we have to be sure that we are not talking about a coordinating body, because coordinating bodies are created on purpose to procrastinate the going together. It's like when you set up commissions. Commissions usually is because you need time before you really get to something in common. So when we are thinking about the future of a global platform, global institution, global something, that must be something that can take responsibilities on behalf of us, because this is the other word that came out. Has the responsibility, not just coordinating. And I think there, all the experts here are needed for a process that as soon as we have the SDGs, we will have to come and say, okay, how concretely we can go also to take on the global level the issue and not only at national level. And with this, I would like to end my too long too long ending, by thanking all the panelists, and a huge thank to John. I think you did a marvelous job. When they told me that you were the best in the world for this job, I was saying, I want to see that, and actually I do think. And this kind of panel made me still proud, even getting older, pretty proud and happy to be in this kind of work, because this is something that really gives, I think, gives hope and really the strength to move forward. So thank you to all the participants as well, including those that were tweeting. And okay, this is just a step for the next one. We'll see you the next one. Thank you.
Merci. Vous avez besoin de savoir un peu plus sur le secteur de l'eau.
Well done.
Thank you.